Good evening and welcome to Inside the Rookery Season 8, Episode 2, where I am joined by Jendia Gammon, Gareth Powell, to talk about building creative anthologies. And of course, as always, by one of my fellow Rooks this week, it's Andy Lease. Hello, Andy, and hello, Jendia and Gareth. Welcome back to the stream. You've both been on separately before, Jendia, I think a couple of times, and we're really happy to have you back.
Thank you.
No problem at all. So we've got loads of questions, as always, pre-submitted on the Discord server by patrons, so we'll go through them. But I'd just like to welcome everyone in the comments who are watching live. If you've got any comments or any questions, please do pop them in, and I will bring them up on the screen, and we will have a chat about them. So, welcome back. Would you like to, for those who don't know you, I'm sure pretty much everyone does, but just give both of yourselves a brief introduction and then we'll get into the new imprint, and which I'm really excited to hear about.
Go for it, Gareth.
I'll go to you, Jendia, first.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, so I'm Jendia Gammon. I've also gone by the pseudonym J. Diane Dotson, and I am editor-in-chief of the new publishing imprint Stars and Sabers Publishing, and Gareth is managing editor. I am an author of science fiction, fantasy, horror, and other genre novels and collections and short stories. So I am bringing, that expertise over. I'm Nebula finalist and BSFA finalist author this year, and shortlisted for some other awards. So I am happy to be here. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, thanks for having us back. I mean, shocking after last time, but thank you. I'm Gareth Powell. I've written 20-something books over the last 15 years. Won a couple of BSFA awards, been a finalist for the Locus and the British Fantasy and a few others. And yes, I'm very proud to be involved in this project with my wife, with Jendia, and we're very excited about it.
Excellent. I've popped the Indiegogo link in the chat there, and it's up on the screen, so we'll bring that up a couple of times as we go through the... Jendia, you're multitasking. It's hard for me to type and talk, so I'm impressed.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why Andy's along. So let us get into it. We'll go to Seagoat has asked, as always. I think it's Seagoat. Is it Seagoat? Oh, no, it was Roderick, one of our mods. So Roderick asks, so what's the elevator pitch for the new imprint? So let's start really broad, and then we can get into some more detailed questions.
We are a new, inclusive imprint that will publish science fiction, fantasy, horror, and mystery novels, novellas, novelettes, and hopefully eventually graphic novels, perhaps some nonfiction down the pipeline. And we are coming from being authors for a long time and seeing changes in the landscape of speculative fiction. We're wanting to expand that and transform it for this new century going forward and offer a new home for speculative fiction. As things are changing in the publishing landscape, we want to be there. We want to have human-made writing, human-made art, and celebrate that. That's my pitch.
Gareth's pitch is just nodding. You've said everything. He's quite happy with that pitch.
No, I assumed there was only one elevator pitch for the press.
Yeah.
We would have two different ones.
You wouldn't have to do competing elevator pitches. No, absolutely not. So
no cartwheeling yet. So
yeah. So you mentioned human created art there, and I was saying to Gareth before in the green room that we feel like we can't do an interview lately without talking about human created art, AI art, and one of our viewers did ask that question. So Roderick asked, are you planning on taking submissions in future? I heard that one of the big sci-fi short story magazines has closed all submissions due to AI dross. Have you encountered that yourselves?
Oh, yeah. This is the topic du jour for not just fiction. It's also for nonfiction. I'm also a science writer. It's taken a lot of my jobs, and that I was working on. So it's not a great subject, but it's something we have to take head on, and we need to decide where do we want to be on the side of this. And so for our perspective, like, I'll answer Roderick's question first. Are we planning on taking submissions? There will be some brief open calls in 2025 for new anthologies. We are not a magazine, so don't come to us for that. And we are not open for submissions right now. Primarily book submissions will mostly come from agents unless we solicit, an exclusive submission, which we can talk about that later. And that's where we're at. But we would like to have brief open calls for short stories for anthologies in the future. We're making sure we get this anthology up and running first so that we, have the machine in processes. We do have 2 other anthologies mapped out for next year.
Sorry, Gareth, can you go?
I was going to say, I think it was very important to us that whatever happens with AI, it's still going to be important to have spaces for creators. And we both are very passionate about human created art and fiction. And I think we both thought it would be very timely just to start a haven like that right now somewhere. People, I think on our website it says we want to be the kind of press that writers can trust and readers can trust. And I mean, that's really our purpose there, is that we want writers to feel they get paid properly, they get well treated, their work gets respected, and readers to know they can come to us to find some great fiction. So
There's just going to bring up this comment because I really like the name. So the person is the Diamond Dimensions Book Universe, but they've helpfully said this is Harvey. So hi, Harvey.
Hi, Harvey.
Hi, Harvey.
So Seago has popped a question in chat. So based on the elevator pitch, that's a wide range of genres. Was that an active decision you made? And if so, why did you not limit yourself to a particular genre or 2?
Oh yeah, it was an active decision because those are the genres we write in. I write in more genres than Gareth. I write in all those genres, and I love to write what I love to read. I want to see more of those 4, science fiction, fantasy, horror, mystery. They're all speculative fiction, so you could put them all under that one umbrella, and it can be anywhere on the spectrum of that or blending in between. Something else I love to do, and it's just going to be a really unique, we're not going to be this one particular trough of like, we're only doing science fiction. I don't really like that in publishers, but that's for other publishers. That's not for me. So we're going to publish what we want to read. And we think that we are a good home for that because, we come from that background and we celebrate these genres. We love them. We love all manner of media made from them, so it's going to be a great place to come for these different things. And it won't just be romantasy or horror. It will be science fiction, fantasy, horror, mystery, and a little bit of thriller. And if we want to do the nonfiction down the road, it would be nice to have books that kind of take on that, take on those genres and talk about them.
What kind of nonfiction do you think you might wander into?
Well, this is the first imprint of our production company, Roaring Spring Productions, LLC. Mm-hmm. And as a production company, we will have offshoots other than Stars and Sabers Publishing. It's possible that we make other publishing imprints that are related to nonfiction, but in the meantime, we'll stick with Stars and Sabers. And we have talked about different forms of nonfiction. Writing guides would be good. I actually am very fond of cookbooks and travel guides, so I'm not going to rule those out one day, but they may have a different imprint name. So, but anything related to the genres of Stars and Sabers, we could have a nonfiction, some range there to talk about, including biographies and that sort of thing would be a lot of fun. Different features about genre, different writing instruction guides, those kinds of things.
Yeah, some genre travel guides or genre cookbooks. I think genre cookbooks are you quite often see them, especially attached to a license. But I love them too. They can be really characterful and really bring you.
Right.
I've got one that's really poor in terms of the actual recipes. It's a minor bugbear. It's so characterful. They've gone so far that you have to go and consult like a translation guide to get actually what the recipe means. That's a bit far for me. But a genre travel guides would be really interesting. So if you're particularly interested in sci-fi, fantasy, like taking you around cities of Europe, America, or the world, really in that vein, that would be, something I would like to read.
Well, that's something I actually started as a kid, because I wrote my first 2 novels when I was 13 and 14, and I didn't submit them at the time. But I had a travel guide, based on a couple of some of the planets, and it was all, arranged according to where you could go, what kind of foods you could expect in different areas, wildlife, different things like that. So I love that kind of stuff. I love that world building and that sort of rich, immersive kind of text. So those are the kind of things that would sort of be a nonfiction form of fiction, world building. And I just think that would be a blast. We hope to publish some graphic novels eventually too. So, and it's, leaning into the art, people made art covers, whatever we can do, to help support human writers, human artists, and build worlds and galaxies and universes from there.
A travelogue cookbooks for the win, says 50.
Yeah, and in fact, well, we could talk about that another time, but I have some kind of spoilery news related to a cookbook.
Oh, exciting. There's multiple comments about a cookbook potentially based on your work.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like anytime anybody reads my books, they get hungry. So there's some, I'm a cook to myself, and so is Gareth and bakers and everything. So, and we know several, I know one particular science fiction author who also writes cookbooks as the other part of her, life. So, something like that would be a lot of fun. Like there's a lot of us who we wear different hats, all the time. And it would just be great fun to have something like that.
So let's have a slightly different question. So Roderick says, have you any worries about maintaining the creative spark when you have to do more management? He follows up, it was too long, so I just added it. Or do you think it might be positive to have something else to focus on while your subconscious plugs away at your creative process?
Gareth, it's your turn. You take this one and then I'll go.
Okay. Is there life outside of the creative process? I mean, as Jendia just said, we both cook. We both cook in very different ways. I don't know. You tend to follow recipes, and I tend to throw things at the stove.
No, I mean, I cook all the chilies and the pastas, and then I make recipes from what I there.
But yeah, I mean, everyone has a life outside their creative process, and we've got the press, we've got this. Day jobs, family life. I mean, it's all part of the picture. And so what kind of I mean, your subconscious is always kind of I want to say festering, but that's not quite the right word. Percolating.
Simmering.
Yeah, simmering.
Good word.
Yeah. Away during real life, but it's like that John Lennon quote, real life is what happens when you should be writing. So.
That feels like something that should be on a t-shirt. Yeah.
So I wear a lot of different hats. I'm a science writer. That's where I get my bulk of my income from. I also write multiple novels at the same time. And they are different genres, or they're all speculative fiction, but there's definite differences between them. I also am an artist, a mother, a cook, and I come from a science background as well as an art background. So, I've always kind of tried to learn everything that I can. I'm a lot like my father in that way. And he was definitely a Renaissance man. So when I start a project that I feel passionate about, it actually helps lift up my creative process for every other thing that I'm doing. And the nice thing about it is that if you feel that one of your projects is kind of burning you out, then you just pivot to something else and you work on that. And what's really unique about this process of having a publishing company is how interactive you have to be across a lot of different streams that you wouldn't be as an author, for example. It's a business, first of all. So I have to put on the business hat, deal with a lot of business transactions. And, last year when we incorporated Roaring Spring Productions, this was a whole process, very expensive, but necessary to make a company that's a legitimate company that you can build from. So, and I have been networking extensively with people at all levels of this process, from, the publishing side to art side to writers to other editors, and beginning the process of, book making itself, which will come online, here in a couple months after we have all our stories formatted. Something I do have experience with because I was an indie author first and I published my own series. So, and Gareth has also got some of that experience. So I feel like it's very rewarding, and this is a part-time endeavor. If it becomes full-time one day to be editor-in-chief, that would be really great. We would probably have more people on as editors at that point. But for now, it is very part-time, and, we will scale slowly and carefully rather than, burn out too quickly. That's the plan.
Unless, of course, some, investor wants to come in and give us $5 million, and in which case all bets are off.
Yeah,
fair.
Yeah,
you're only human. Yeah,
yeah. If we had an influx of of angel investor, we could definitely scale in a different way, and we would bring on more people very quickly, and we would acquire a lot more titles very quickly. So putting that out there in the world that we do want to be. We want to scale up from small press, hopefully to mid-sized press down the line a few years. If we can get there, that would be amazing. Either way, small presses are where it's at. That's where all the daring and experimental fiction is. And that's one reason I have chosen to publish with them myself.
Mm-hmm. There's not really a follow-up question, but a related question from a writer rather than someone just curious about the business, saying simply when yes, I'm an aspiring writer, should I just accept? I will always have to have side hustles, but how can I set aside the creativity time? Any top tips?
Yeah, so that one is something that we both struggle with. And when I was working and had little toddlers running around, and I wanted to get my books out in the world, and I was constantly exhausted. And I actually reached out to author Joanne Harris, and I said, look, I know you were a parent. How did you do this? How did you get there? And she said, you just have to carve out the time. And I took that and I ran with it. And like the minute my kids were in bed, I was at the computer. I was writing as much as I could get done. And, I think that we have to just, yes, unless you hit it big, and those situations are so rare, that's why they make the news, because they are rare. The 6-7 figure book deals. Wouldn't we all love that? But no, it's not going to happen. I have opinions on that, but that's a whole nother topic. But yeah, you do need a side hustle, because I always like to say it's like having a table, and more legs on the table makes it a more stable table. So you need a few gigs. Because if one of them goes away, you don't want to be flipping over and devastated financially. So, you have to build that sustainability and have these things going, because, and a lot of people I know who have been able to write full time, they might have a spouse who has, the breadwinner role, or they might have their own full-time job that is their main thing, and they just write in the margins of that, and they get all their benefit and everything from the main job. So there's always a different example, and most of the time we're not going to hit it big to make it so that we can write full time. I'm not there. Gareth's not there. And that's okay. It's really okay, because you're still doing what you love.
Yeah, I think the media, especially kind of like television media, possibly has a little bit to blame for people's perception about what writers are and what writers can be, because you sort of see two main portrayals. You see the portrayal of someone who's, you know, Anthologies came up to the window and threw himself at it. Really freaked me out. You get the writers that are portrayed as like these superstar writers, and they just, you know, like Sandra Bullock in that film that she was in with Channing Tatum recently.
That movie was fun, I have to say.
It was fun. Or you get the reverse, which is writers who are kind of like struggling so much that everyone in their family is like, oh, you're you know, when are you going to give this up and get a proper job? Whereas actually those two extremes are probably not what the reality is for most writers. But I think when you're coming into it, if you feel like, oh, I've still got side hustles, I've still got to do it, because of the way it's portrayed in the media, somehow as a young writer, you'll probably feel like you failed.
Don't ever feel like you failed, because you're working on your dream and something that you love. That's a win. And it doesn't really matter what path you take to get there. That's a win, always.
The one that annoys me as well is the bohemian writer who eschews all this and is concentrates on his art, but still somehow manages to live in a multi-million-dollar loft in New York.
That's fiction. That's fiction.
Yes.
But, you know, I think, too, you bring up a good point, Lindsay, about what I can't stand in regarding to whether it's on the page or the canvas, this whole thing of like, you got to be a starving artist to be creative. That's BS. That has nothing to do with it. In fact, if you're unhappy, like you don't need like a muse per se. And if you're unhappy and you are struggling financially, you cannot write as well. Ask me how I know, because I do intimately well. And when you, in America, for example, if you're a lower income bracket and your insurance goes away, I mean, you know, you have to take care of yourself and your family, you know, and you can still write. You can still do this. I've done it. And if I've done it, I'm not superhuman. I'm an East Tennessee gal. I moved to LA. You know, I've just put in the work, and unfortunately you have to do that. You have to write. So,
and
sorry,
I think
you have to write.
Hopefully we've answered this through the conversation so far, because it was a few minutes ago in the chat. But Tradition says, can you run a successful business without compromising your creativity?
Oh my God, you have to be creative to run it.
Yeah.
It's like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's until you've got the foundation, you can't do the creative. I mean, having complete artistic freedom and creativity is a privilege, and not everyone can afford it. And so you need to have some way to get money coming in to pay the rent, to pay the bills, you know, to pay for a laptop to write on. Mm-hmm. So it's this idea that somehow having to deal with the icky business side of it somehow contaminates you as an artist is I think it's a very naive kind of notion that is usually put about by people who want to use it in order not to pay those artists what they're worth. It's like,
exactly.
Yeah, it's this is a vocation, so we don't need to pay you. And you know, if we pay you, it might contaminate your purity. Which is
crap, and it's a falsehood, and it's the exact opposite situation. When you pay us, we write better, because we don't have to worry constantly about where's my food coming from, where's my medical care. You know, like what if I can't support my family? Like you have to do what you have to do to take care of yourself. And you will always have that creativity. It's not going away. But when you are supported financially and in your community, you will work better at being creative, because at that point, there's this stress that isn't as pervasive. The wolf isn't quite at the door. Maybe it's on the sidewalk, but it's not at your door, you know, so that you make things better when you're more secure.
That bohemian writer thing that is really irksome with the massive loft in New York should come with just like massive disclaimer and massive font that says this could only be achieved through inherited wealth.
Yes.
Well, in a lot of ways, that's not entirely, false. Like you do see that a lot in literature when these people, they have a whole PR team because they can afford it. They can afford $30,000 a year to pay a publicist and go, put their books in all these windows and do everything. Like we can't, but it exists, and that's like the realm of influencers and things like that. Like, great for you, but that's not how it is for most of us.
Yeah, money doesn't trickle down; it sucks to itself. Like money gets money.
Like a snowball, rolling down a hill.
This is also tied into people who complain when authors promote their books on social media. It's like, how else do you think we're going to get the word? You know,
we don't have big teams of publicists out there plunking books down in front of people. We got to do it ourselves.
Yeah, even if you're traditionally published, there are marketing budgets are really squeezed tight for publishers.
Yeah.
So unless you're one of the very big authors, then you're not going to get much support. So you have to do it all yourself, and to kind of look down your nose at authors doing that. I mean, you wouldn't, if a plumber was advertising their services, you wouldn't say, "Oh, how dare you! You're sullying your plumbing by being all commercial about it." And it's no, we have to.
It's a business.
Toot our own horn because nobody else will.
Sorry.
That's okay.
I was just going to say that's quite interesting, because I was going to ask if there's a cultural difference, because you're sort of based in two different countries. And in the UK, I've always felt that we do have a culture that's sort of like, don't blow your own trumpet and like wait to be noticed. And it's a little bit like you shouldn't really be talking about yourself.
Yeah.
But actually, that's not true, because we accept in Britain that plumbers advertise on Facebook and talk about how great they are at plumbing. So maybe that's not it's a particular British thing in terms of intellectual pursuits. You shouldn't talk about your intellectual achievements in this country. Is that?
It's the who do they think they are kind of attitude. It's like if you get too big for your boots, or you need to be taken down a peg or two, and it's unseemly to. I mean, I remember going to convention. I think it was a World Fantasy Convention in Brighton. 2016, I might be remembering that completely wrong, but some American authors were there, and they brought copies of their books and stood them up on the table in front of them on a panel, and people were muttering about that. It's like, British authors just don't do that. And I was thinking, well, actually, that's a really good idea, but it was just like, it was seen as this naked commercialism that was just, this.
This isn't a hobby; it is a business, and you have to advertise. And like we've been saying, we don't have people out there to do it for us. And so, that's just the way it is. And there is a difference. In America, I do feel like we are the squeaky wheels, and squeaky wheels get the grease, as the saying goes. So we're out here we're competitive, because it's a big country. We're all trying to make it in a big country. That's, a lot of people, and we're trying to do something, and it is a very entrepreneurial country. We are the kind of people like, I want to start this business, and you can go start that business. Whatever happens after that, takes, a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. So, but, at that point, like you do have that capability, but you also need to get yourself out there. So, I do think there's a bit of a cultural difference, and, it is what it is. But, I definitely think like, you're in a business. If you're not doing this as just a hobby and you don't want anybody outside your family to read it, then this doesn't apply. But if you're wanting your books out in the world, you have to find a way to get the book to the reader. And right now, the most powerful tools that we have are through social media. And for example, Book Talk has changed a lot of writers' lives, not only in big publishing, but quite often in indie and self-publishing. A book talker will talk about an indie book and it will sell thousands of copies. I would like that to happen to me, if anybody's listening. Anyway, so it's a lot.
Yeah, it's like Oprah Winfrey had a book club, didn't she? That if you got into that book club, and here the equivalent was like a morning tea, like this morning. And
Richard and Ginny.
Richard and Ginny, but it did make a difference, and that's not. But particularly, like that author hasn't done something different to all the other authors. They haven't worked harder. They haven't taken more time to hone their craft. They've just been lucky.
To be honest, well, with those book clubs, that's not luck. That's the publishers paying a lot of money to have.
Right. Oh, okay. Money gets money, is what you're telling me in that. So you're not just like falling into Oprah Winfrey's lap when she's at the airport and she's like, "What am I going to read today?"
No.
Yeah, no, Reese Witherspoon isn't just kind of browsing Barnes and Noble and going, "Oh, that
Right.
looks good. I think I'll do that." So, yeah.
Yeah, that's ruined
all very
all of
Hollywood.
That's ruined everything for me.
Yeah.
I'm so sad now.
It's funny you mention the conventions, Gareth, because when we do Chimera, we often try to put like copies of the guest books up in front of them. But again, none of them have ever come with a copy to kind of promote themselves. It's always like, we're like, oh no, we've got a copy of your book to promote for you. Some of them even seemed, like this year particularly, like Tripp seemed embarrassed that we wanted to talk about his book. Like, you're here to promote your book. Let us promote your book.
Put it there. Yeah, and they were a bit like, oh, I should have thought of that. Some of them like, oh, I didn't even think to do that. We're like,
yeah, I think there's so many conventions here in the US. There's so many, like beyond count. I don't even know. And all sizes, right? Of course, San Diego Comic-Con was this last weekend. And any chance that you get in front of this live audience, you know, that image of that cover will stick, you know, and it's very worthwhile to bring it if you have the space to do it. And if somebody's not got a weird hang up about it, you know, and so that goes also for tables, you know, like if you're at a table and you want to set up your book so people see it, that visual, they're seeing all this stuff. You got to grab them. And the cover is the grab most of the time.
Talking of conventions, a big shout out to everyone who's at Gen Con this weekend. And if you are, please pop by booth 3053, Modiphius's booth, where our new game, Dark Deeds, is there. You can see a physical copy. You can even pick one up and buy it. And if they are all sold out, you can go online and order it. So we are very excited this weekend.
Very cool.
Dark Deeds. Whoop, whoop. So let's go back into the chat. There's a few questions waiting for us. Triadula asks, how did you choose who to approach for the anthology? Did you each have a list? And I've got a few other questions about the approach to the list for the anthology and getting submissions.
Right. Good question.
We worked together quite closely. We were throwing names back and forth.
Mm-hmm.
So it was, but you know, we've both been in this business a while, so we both have met lots of writers and we know lots of writers, both established like Adrian Tchaikovsky and up and coming new writers as well. And yeah, we kind of made a list between us of who you know, this is our first anthology. It's cross genre. Who's our dream list of people? So that's what we did.
Right. And I don't know if people had been paying attention, but on both of my YouTube channels under Dotson and Gammon, I had been interviewing a lot of authors over the past few years. And several of those people are in the anthology. And that was because I knew them. I had worked with them. You know, it's an interesting mix of global authors, several Southern California ones who I've met in person many times. San Diego and LA are well represented. We've got some Chicago writers. We've got people, you know, we've got people in South America, Africa, you know, Europe. So it's really pretty great. And that's the approach that we'll have going forward is, you know, a great diverse group, you know, expanding genre and their unique fingerprint style of writing, you know, these different stories in it. So if you want, I can list who the authors are at this moment that we have on board for our first anthology, which is called Of Shadows, Stars, and Sabers. And the announced authors are Adrian Tchaikovsky, Cynthia Pelayo, Stark Holborn, I. Zhang, Paul Cornell, Bonnie Burton, David Quantick, Eugene Bacon, Peter McLean, Ren Hutchings, Henan Bernardo, Greg Van Eekhout, Pedro Iniguez, Jonathan Mayberry, Dennis K. Crosby, D.K. Stone, Sarah L. Miles, J.L. Warad, Casey Griffin, Anthony Johnston, Mia Duong, Helen Glenn Jones, Alice James, Con Wong, Callie Wallace, Laurel Hightower, T.L. Huchu, Gemma Amor, Jonathan L. Howard, and Lizbeth Miles. And we might have more announcements. We will see. But that is nearing completion of the table of contents. And are all remarkable.
I've popped the link in there so people can go and have a look and check it out for themselves. I think it's such a great, like, exciting mix of names. There's some I know, there's some I don't know, but I absolutely love your work, Jendia, especially your anthology. So I'm really excited to read an anthology that you've put together, because like I just found it, as I've said before so many times, and please, it's the Shadow Galaxy, the anthology that is it behind me just now? No, not at the moment. And I found it like profoundly moving, that the mix that you picked, the genres that you write in, and the kind of thread that ran through it of like your authorial DNA that kind of felt to me, and we talked about this, like a kinship, even though I'm from like rural Scotland and you're from Appalachia, there was something there that I could connect with on a very visceral level. And so I'm really excited to see and read the authors that you and Gareth have connected with and put together into that anthology. So, yeah.
Oh, and I want to say something related to both my collection, The Shadow Galaxy, and of Shadow Stars and Sabers, is some of the stories within The Shadow Galaxy are becoming novels. For example, my novel Atacama, which comes out next year, is directly pulled from the short story The Scaffold. In of Shadow Stars and Sabers, we have some in-universe stories from some of these authors. For example, Adrian Tchaikovsky's story is coming from one of his fantasy universes. Jonathan Mayberry's story is from Kagan the Damned. And, Peter McLean's is from, his Priest of Bones, War for the Rose Throne. So we have some in-universe stuff as well as some brand new things. They're all magnificently diverse. We've got cyberpunk. We've got, high fantasy. We've got spooky Welsh cottages, it's all kinds of great stuff. And one thing that could happen is that any one of those stories could take off on its own universe and build a new other world for that author, which I think would be fantastic.
Yeah, and if you do have a question, sorry, Gareth.
It's okay. I was just going to say we've got people. We've got Nebula winners there. We've got Hugo winners there. We've got
Bram Stoker.
We've even got an Emmy award-winning writer in there.
There's a funny story with him.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So yeah, it's huge talent.
I mean, I'm super biased, but I feel like it's the best anthology ever.
So yeah, Scotland and Appalachia are part of the same mountain range. This kind of like tickles some memory that they used to be together and they were sort of like split apart.
Yes.
Well,
when they were a Pangean mountain range, and then Scotland, as it drifted, the Atlantic came. Scotland got pulled across and crashed into England. So.
And then too, like I have Scots-Irish ancestry, and Gammon, well, it has a different connotation in England. Ireland, it was a surname, and so that's where that comes from. That's my maiden name. And Jendia is Jennifer Diane. So, it's like when you read these things, and when I read, interestingly, Welsh and Scottish fiction, it is that DNA that we actually probably do share, and also like the cultural DNA as well as the surroundings. Because if you look at East Tennessee and you look at Scotland and England, they look exactly the same. The Appalachian Mountains are older than the rings of Saturn and ripe for stories. And I have several coming from those. So that's going to be fun too. Moving forward, I'd love to showcase both areas in, our authors and other countries, because all the different voices around the world in speculative fiction, if we can elevate whoever we can, that's the goal.
So there's quite a few questions coming in the chat. So I remember you mentioning that in a call once, Gareth. Any updates on you two's co-authored book? It's from Harvey.
Yeah, we've got a novella that bit. Well, I have to say, Jendia has written parts of. I haven't got round to yet because I've got 5 books on the go at the moment. So, but yeah, there's one. Yeah, she's got 7. So
You're crazy. Anyway.
Yeah, so I mean, there is one in process, but we have no time scale or anything for that. But
yeah, I think this one is a science fiction novella. We had another one that was sort of sci-fi horror. That's kind of on the back burner. We may come back to that because it was a great concept too. But this one is sort of more of a star-crossed situation, and definitely involves some hard sci-fi. And in fact, I've got an astrophysicist here locally that I'm going to be meeting with and talking to him about some of the concepts in it and how, how plausible some of this is, because I have a science background. For me, it's no problem to talk to other scientists. I'm a science writer. It's part of what I do. So I definitely want to see, like, the human element is always the most important, or, whatever your character species is, always the most important, those characters. But, in this case, we really want to get the science as close to plausible as we can, and then introduce some shenanigans that make you really care what happens to these people when things go badly. So we think that maybe that can go out in the next few months, but we do have some deadlines we have to meet on our respective titles before then.
And Still Loading asks, how do you find ways to connect Anthology with theme in world situations and or both or others?
Well, this one, as we said, is a cross-genre anthology, so it's more like a beautiful chocolate assortment of all different flavors, but they're all kind of, as Jendia said, you could put them all in the box labeled speculative fiction, but it's all the different flavors, and we want to really showcase what we're about and what we want to do. So the later anthologies, as mentioned, have already got themes, and they'll be slightly more tightly focused, but still, still very, be careful how I say that, genre fluid. So,
yeah. So, and in the Shadow Galaxy, my collection, that was partly the inspiration for this, because I broke it into science fiction, fantasy, and horror sections, as well as Appalachia. And I kind of took that and ran with it in this anthology of multi-author stories. And so when we are sitting down in another month and a half and we're looking at all these stories, we're going to be DJs, right? We're going to figure out how they flow into each other, up and down and through these genres in the book. Whether or not that means that there will be distinct sections, there might be, but we are planning that out. And I am relying on someone who's very good at editing collections and anthologies to kind of help us out with that arrangement, like get that person's viewpoint. And so that we know we're on the right track. But, we already have some ideas of, like, where's this going to fit? Where's the cyberpunk one going to fit with this spaceship one? Like, where is, the spooky Welsh cottage one going to fit with this monster? And that's a lot of fun. That is like, like when I make a huge meal, like at Thanksgiving, and I have to time everything and arrange everything just right, so it comes out and you have this spread, that takes planning. And so this is like the buffet, this is everything timed and arranged just right, so that when you have that in front of you, you can just dive right in.
I was just thinking that we're both Gen X, and all that time spent making mixtapes in the 80s is finally paying off.
Yeah. I used to have a top 40 that I made myself every week, and I made elaborate posters for it, and I would listen to Casey Kasem, but then I'd come up with my own top 40, and I would just have it on the wall, and people would ask, well, what's number one this week? So yeah, I love arranging things. It's fun.
My brother is now a BBC journalist, and he used to tape the Radio 1 charts, top 40, but he would cut out the DJ like doing the speech, but he like put in his own. He was brilliant, and he would make them for me.
Nerd alert! I love it. Yeah. I see that we have one of our anthology authors in the chat right now, J.L. Warren. Hello.
Oh, here we are.
We got a great story from him that I still think about, and so I can't wait to share that one.
The Neapolitan ice cream of speculative fiction.
Yeah.
Here's quite a specific question that I don't know if you'll have the answer to, but I'll bring it up. So Dryadula asks, around how many pages do you think it will sit at in total, and how many words is the longest and shortest story?
So I can answer the final bit first. My hard cap was 5,000 words. The pay is generous. And I was like, well, unless an angel investor swoops in, because that's why we're fundraising. And I have 2 different fundraising streams for a reason. The Ko-Fi coffee one is directly funding the authors. And the very limited Indiegogo one is for the production and any sort of stretch goals going toward the next anthologies, which are themed. And I can talk about the themes in a minute. So in terms of how many pages, we don't have all the stories in yet. There's a deadline of the end of this month. It is a flexible deadline, but I wanted to make sure Glasgow was behind everyone, and people could sit down and get it done who haven't turned it in yet. But a lot of them have. And so I don't know yet. I don't know yet. Oh, Anthony's here. He wasn't sure he was going to make it. Yay! Another of our anthology authors. And Atomic Blonde. Hey, Anthony. So we don't have a hard set word count yet. I will tell you that with what we have already, which is not all of them by any stretch, it's already a book. It's already a book. So it's going to be a nice little chunker. It's not going to be like a doorstop, but it will feel so good in your arms. And then there will be, I did see on the chat earlier a question of formats. We will have paperback, hardback, and ebook. And
I was just about to bring that one up. So that's good. Both physical, digital. I really like, what did you say? A nice little chunker. So I love that phrase in every single way. And
I don't know why it's so great, right? It's just could be like, it's an absolute unit, but it's not a unit. It's a subunit. I don't know.
So when I receive the anthology and my grubby paws, I shall be taking a photo of it next to my own nice little chunker, my cat Shadow.
Yes. More pets with book pictures, please. We love that. Any pet.
So Anthony Johnson, you mentioned Atomic Blonde.
Yes, Anthony Johnston is here, and he's behind the writing of Atomic Blonde. So, and he also has a brand new pre-order out for his Dog Sitter Detective novels, which is a new mystery series, very entertaining. Just dropped their third books, pre-order today. In fact, today I did put on the starsandsabers.com/news. You can go and see we're starting to have pages for our authors there under the news. We've had Adrian, Eugen, and today I published Anthony. So you can go there and find his website, find his new book pre-order, and just click from there. And so it's and his story is very touching, and it's a cyberpunk story, which is great. I just can't wait like this. So I'm going to give me a second here. I have to just be effusive and just spread the love, because every time we get one of these stories from these authors, whether or not they are established and award-winning, or whether or not they are debuting for the first time, or, they come from self-publishing and this is their first anthology. We have someone like that, these are treasure boxes. Each story is a treasure, and reading them makes me so happy. And then it's the honor too of working with each of them and thinking, God, we get to read this special story. This is for our book. This is what, oh my God. And it just, every single one of them, this is just, I love it. This is great. It's so great.
I'm annoyed with myself because usually I would have set this up so I could present it, because the Stars and Sabers, the Of Shadow Stars and Sabers cover is already out, and I love it. Like, blue and gold, what is not to like? Just that alone. But the font, everything about it is beautiful.
And you can go to starsandsabers.com/books. You should be able to see the cover there. And plus it's on the Indiegogo.
Gorgeous. Genuinely gorgeous.
Oh, it didn't post. Well, okay. So starsandsabers.com/books. And that it doesn't matter how you spell Sabers, even though the business is ER. If you type it in as RE, you will get there as well. We thought ahead.
I've just put it to Stars and Sabers.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. It's there.
Thank you.
Bombed the chat. There we go.
So we can talk about it. We could talk about the cover if you want, because that was great fun.
I saw you made a post about it, and I'd love to know more about how it came into being and how the name came into being.
So the artist of the cover is Niall Grant, Niall Grant. And you can, on Instagram, there's so many gorgeous pieces of art. He's worked with Sony, with the Big Five. Super great to work with. We're going to be bringing him back for the themed anthologies that are coming, because we really love his work. And he was just a joy to work with. It was fantastic. And for the cover for this one, because it's cross genre, I asked him and I said, these are the kinds of stories that are going to be in it. And so he picked different sort of visuals to represent all those different genres. So you have a castle, a dragon, a sword, you have a horror spooky tree, you have a graveyard, a bat, and then, a rocket and a planet. And it's perfect. It's perfect in every single way. So we're super thrilled with it. And I worked with a lot of artists over the years, and I feel very strongly about supporting other artists. So.
And I, before we were talking about Chimera and having the books like on the desk, like I personally, maybe I should be ashamed to admit this, but I am drawn to a cover. Like it is a cover quite often that will catch my eye and make me pick it up. And I'll still, read the blurb and have a look at and maybe get recommendations, but I will always be drawn to a cover that kind of catches my eye, like that one did.
I mean, that's what covers are for, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Right.
Yeah.
And that's too, when you look at our website, the people I work with, Dash Creative, they're based out of Tampa, Florida. I worked with them for the logo for Stars and Sabers. I worked with them for a lot of graphics, and I worked with them for the website, and I have worked with them for years. And because if you look at that website, it's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. And that's what we wanted. All of this is like, we want form and function. It has to have both. That's my wheelhouse. Is like, I need it to be beautiful and I need it to function well. And that's my whole goal with all of this. It's like, we want people to hold their chakra and to look at it and be like, this is so pretty. Hold their chakra.
My favorite detail on the cover, and it may not be intentional, but the little planet with a ring that's in sort of the top left corner, like for me, it really evokes the old Lego space figures. And they had that little, and it's not exactly the same, but it really evokes that for me, which immediately brings me back to childhood. Like, it's got a real,
that's so cool. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, I really love the little dragon around the sword with the little flames that look kind of like blood, but they're flames. But behind it, the castle with the little red windows, I'm obsessed with that because it's like such perfect Gothic fantasy kind of thing. There's so many great little details on it. And also one thing fun that I asked him to do, because part of Indiegogo is that you get swag for some of the tiers, I asked him to pull some of the elements out of that and make some designs so that I have gorgeous stickers that are metallic and very cool, and other fun features that we will offer as part of the perks for supporters.
We'll just bring that link up because I have asked, it was my birthday yesterday, I asked Andy Law if as one of my birthday presents that I could have a special swag perk tier for your book, your anthology. So we will be going and doing that straight after the stream on the Indiegogo link. And I would encourage everyone else to do that as well, to support authors, to support creatives, and to support two of our favorite feathered friends who've really supported us in Inside the Rookery. So please do go and fund it. And I will be saying happy birthday to myself. Well,
happy birthday. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
I wanted to speak briefly. On the name Stars and Sabers and on the logo for it, which if you look at our website, you see the Stars and Sabers logo, or you see it in the headers of our social media. And, the sword with, the pommel with the planet, the stars, the crescent moon, that was very personal. It was also designed, with Dash Creative. And for me, it's a deeply personal symbol because there are 8 stars if you look closely. And 8 was my father's favorite number. And so they are arranged in a figure 8. So it can mean infinity, or it can mean Dad's favorite number and stars, because he's the person who introduced me to astronomy, to science, to mythology, to all these wonderful things. And he was a storyteller himself. But also it represents what we write, what we want to publish. And when we needed an iconic symbol, and they delivered. So, and Stars and Sabers comes, of course, from stars kind of evoking science fiction and sabers kind of evoking fantasy. We might make some others, offshoot imprints that have different names, but for now it will encompass horror and mystery as well. And, I feel like it all has come together carefully. There's a lot of love behind it. There's a lot of design elements that you don't see that were very carefully thought through. And I remember we also sent a lot of sketches in of different kinds of swords and stars and all this, and just brilliant design by the people at Dash. So they even it was like a whole interview of what mattered to us, of what symbols were important to us, of things that mattered in our lives. And it's just at every step of this, whether it's our logo, the name, the website, the cover of the book, the people we publish, this is all from love and inspiration, with the thought that we want to spread love and inspiration through stories. And the sub tagline, Ad Astra per Fabulas, is to the stars through stories.
Which I love. I love that. So Dryadula asks, is there anyone you would have liked to ask but didn't? And maybe this is an opportunity to talk about the next themed anthologies.
Hot button item.
Someone we had to turn down.
Oh my God. This is so funny. So if anybody ever is like, we got turned down by Stars and Sabers, well, just know this, that's a major science fiction author got turned down by us because they didn't follow the guidelines. So what happened was, I had this author, I was like, oh, it'd be great to have a story from this person, right? Brilliant writer. So I reached out to a lot of people, just so you know. Not everybody said yes, not everybody was available, whatever. Some people were kind of waiting in the wings, see how it was going to go. And some of those people are coming for our next ones. So that's pretty cool. And so no, it was way more than 5,001. He writes and he goes, well, I've basically ticked off everything you didn't want in your guidelines. And here it is. And it was like 10,000 words, and it was super violent, and it was like all these things. I was like, not for this one. And I said, like, I really appreciate it, but like, he's like, I'll probably use it for something else. I said, yeah, you're going to have to. We wanted to have you back. And I was like, I cannot believe this conversation happened. It was hysterical. But yeah, there's like, as I get to know more writers, and StokerCon was great for this. StokerCon, I cannot recommend more. It's probably the best convention you can go to. And that is the Horror Writers Association, where the Bram Stoker Awards are given. Next year, it is in Stamford, Connecticut. So quite close to New York City. You could literally fly to JFK, get on a train, 50 minutes later, you're in Stamford. So if you want to go. I'm going. I went to the one in San Diego this year, and I met a lot of these luminous horror authors that I just have loved from afar on social media. I've interacted and got to meet them in person and got to have those conversations of like, hey, I'd love to have you on board. Would you be interested? I just an in-person ask. And so a couple of them said yes. So themed anthologies in 2025. If we meet our goals for this one and we get to stretch goals, that's going to go fund those. In the first one, should we tell them what the themes are, Gareth?
We can hit, yeah.
Okay. So the second anthology will be magic themed. And we're talking all manner of magic systems. And we're going to let the writers have a lot of fun with that one. Just go to town, come up with whatever your magic universe theme stories. And the other one, which we aim to release in mid-October, is horror, because Halloween. So that'll be next year. And that one will be horror based. So I've already reached out to some fantastic horror writers. Now we'll continue to do that. And you will see some familiar faces from Of Shadow, Stars and Sabers returning for those as well, which that's heartening, because that means that they enjoyed working with us and they want to do it again. And we love that, because we want them back. It's all good.
Thank you. So that almost brings us to the end of the hour. So there's a few questions we didn't get to. Things like, why would you elaborate more on why did you choose the stories you did? So how can people find out more? I'm on your mailing list, Jendia, and it's really good. I get like regular updates and always find them really engaging and fun to read. So that's one way. But is there any other ways people can stay in touch?
There is actually a newsletter on the website for Stars and Sabers as well, if you want to sign up for that. I've put my personal one in the chat, in the comments, because I do have a lot of other updates that don't have to do with this particular anthology. But Gareth also has one that, can you add yours?
Just doing it.
Okay, so it's going to add this, and he's got a great one as well. And we are on social media basically everywhere. And I will pop my link tree, which it links out to all those social medias. And I'm pretty active across all of them. That one didn't work. Well, anyway, so it's linktr.ee/. bit.ly/Jendia Gammon. But, you know, my website has everything on it, you know, jendiagammon.com.
Well, I tried to post it, but it failed to post. So
mine failed too.
We'll provide them. We'll get them on the Discord, and we'll get them in YouTube when it is the on-demand version on YouTube. So thank you so much for joining us. It's been really great to hear more about the anthology and all the plans for the future. As I said, I'm away to do my funding, so please do think about doing that if you can. And if not, just follow for more updates and see where the imprint goes. This week on Wednesday, we are doing a live unboxing of Dark Deeds, so join us for that. But again, thank you, Jendia. Thanks, Gareth. Thanks to Andy for joining me. And we will see you again soon. Until the next time, thank you so much to our patrons for continuing to support us. We'll see you again, and caw-caw, caw-caw. Bye.
bye.
Bye.